Hi everyone. Your homework for week 2 is going to be 2 composition sketches. Considering the objects from your story and your storyline in general, print 2 of the full-scale 8x10 composition sketches templates. So the template is right here. If you click on it, it'll bring it up here, but I think since it's a JPEG, it doesn't give me the options to print or to save it from here. So what I'm going to do is right-click on it and do Save Link As. And then you want to choose where you're going to save it, and then just hit Save, and then you can open it up from there. And now when you draw, you can either draw it in portrait mode, which is up like this, or you could flip it to the side and draw it in landscape mode. It just depends on how you want the layout of your book cover to be. So you're going to download that, and you're going to draw your composition sketches in there. So you're going to want to print 2 of those templates, and you're going to draw 2 different compositions in contour format, which is just outlines. And you want to make sure your drawings are different from one another so I can give you feedback on both and help you choose which one you want to refine. And here's a sample of a composition sketch. So this is a contour drawing, which means it's all outlines. There's no shading going on, and there's no color in it yet. You want to make sure you also have clean lines because you're going to be tracing this in Illustrator, and if your lines are really messy, it's just kind of hard to see what you want to trace over. So mine could be a little cleaner around in here, but this will still work to trace over in Illustrator. Alright, remember your composition should capture a moment from your story and show the general storyline. You also need to draw in your book title and any other text that you're going to have on your book cover. You'll be able to use a font to create your text instead of tracing it, but you should have an idea of the entire layout, text and all. So what I did, I drew in my text, and it might not be the font I'm going to use, but I just want to get an idea of where I'm going to have my text. And if you're stuck, you can take a look at more of the student samples and professional samples that I shared with you last week. When you're finished with your drawings, you're going to scan both of them or take a picture for submission. If you take a picture, make sure that you have your camera or phone directly over your paper and just keep it as straight as possible because since we're going to be tracing these, you just want to make sure it's flat on and totally straight. Once you have the files for both of your drawings on your computer, you just want to make sure you name them correctly. So I'm just going to add my name to the end of this. And then since you'll have 2 of them, just do 1 and 2. So you're going to have 2 files like this that you want to submit for your homework. To submit your homework, you just come right down to the bottom and click here. Since the assignment isn't open yet, this is grayed out for now, but you'll be able to click on it just like last week, and you'll be able to attach both of your drawings in there. You can also come up to Assignments, click there. I'm going to just exit student view and then click on the week 2. And this is just the other way to get to the assignment section. Alright, I just want to go over the compositional considerations one more time and show you a few examples. So when you're drawing your composition sketches, keep these in mind. So bleeding. What that means is that the elements in your project can bleed off the page. So these lollipops here aren't perfectly in the frame, they're bleeding off, and what this tells you is that even though I don't see it, I know there's more of the lollipop out there. Same with this gingerbread house. I don't see the roof, but I assume that since it's bleeding off the edge of the page, that the roof is there. Same with this one here. So if everything's just perfectly stuck in the frame, it just makes it appear that that's where everything exists and nothing exists outside of the frame. So keep that in mind. Next is hierarchy. Composition should have a range of large, medium, and small objects. So what this does is help separate the foreground, the midground, and the background. So for example, this pig here is in the foreground. It's closer to the camera than, say, these trees in the background. But even though the pig would be smaller than the trees in real life, so since he's closer to us, to our eye, he's going to be bigger than the things in the background here. So if these were gigantic trees, they would just look closer, and since they're smaller, they look like they're pushed back a little ways in space. So that's what I mean when I say hierarchy, and having things smaller than others and some things larger. It's just for scale and for distance, and it really helps your eye just to see what's in the foreground, what's going on in the background. Perspective. Scene should have an apparent way or angle in which we are viewing it. So what that means is if we were actually standing here in this kitchen, where are we viewing it from? So right here, we're a little bit above everything, kind of looking down. So we see the tops of the counters, the top of the TV, top of the dog's head, top of the stove. So we're up above everything. So that's where our perspective is, looking down. This other one here, our perspective is from the ground looking up towards this house. So now we're looking up instead of like the last one looking down to it. So once you decide where you want the viewer's eye to be situated, which direction we want to be looking, all of your elements need to follow that. So here we're looking up at everything, so you don't want to see the top of anything in here, like we're looking down at it. Just keep everything consistent. Next is unity. Your composition should hold together through the use of repetition, continuation, or proximity. So basically, everything should feel like it belongs there and is complementing each other. So here's an example of using repetition and proximity. So we have the 2 sushi rolls here, but in the background we also have multiple ones. We're repeating them, and also we're putting them in these little clusters. So the proximity of them is close together, so these all feel like they go together, and they all complement each other as one cohesive piece here. Alright, emphasis. Your composition should have a focal point, meaning where is the eye drawn to? Where do you want your viewers to look when they look at your artwork? So in this one here, my eye is immediately drawn to this area here. This is where all the action is, and this is where the artist is trying to get my eye to go. Same for in this one here, we almost have a literal line that if you start here, it kind of draws your eye up towards the middle here to this focal point. So just think about where the main part of your piece is that you want people to be looking. Alright, and finally balance. You want your piece to have a symmetrical or asymmetrical balance to it. So here's an example of asymmetrical balance. There's a lot of action and a lot going down on the page here, but then we have all of this space up top that's kind of calmer to just balance everything out. Here's an example of symmetrical balance. We have the beer taps here and the beer glasses, and it almost feels like you just took one side and mirrored it. So it's very symmetrical, but it still feels very balanced. And these are just some things to keep in mind when you're doing your sketches this week. Alright, that's going to wrap up this video on your homework for week 2.